Hey guys, Pete here. Today I was thinking about the wall and how it might come down. This is something that most fans expect to happen in both the show and the books, and since the show is nearing the end, it won't be long until we see it go boom. This video will go over the history of what we know about the wall and will contain spoilers if you aren't caught up to the end of season 6 in the show. One of the things I came across when doing research for this video was the connection to Hadrian's Wall in Britain. George R.R. Martin said that he was influenced by this real-world wall when he came up with the idea for the wall in the North of Weseros. I won't go too deep into the history of Hadrian's Wall other than to say it was a man-made wall that the Romans built to mark the northern boundary of their empire. It was more or less built to keep barbarians from moving freely into the empire from the north. The thing I found interesting about Hadrian's Wall though was that the reasons for building it don't make great sense. Since there's no detailed record of what Hadrian had in mind, it had been left to historians to decide. While there are plenty of reasonable explanations, none of them make you say, oh yeah, of course, that's why they built it. For a couple of examples, think about this. Reason 1, it was built for defense. This wall was huge on like a Donald Trump scale and took a lot of resources to build, maintain, and defend. How many southern raiders could it actually stop, and what would that be worth this investment? Reason 2, it was built as a symbol of the Roman Empire's power. It was definitely impressive, but if the point was to show off, how many people would actually see this wall? Without going down a rabbit hole, why is this important? Because this isn't some mysterious time of history that we don't know much about. It's important in the sense that what history tells us about the wall might not be very accurate. We'll get back to this idea later, but for now let's look at what history and legend tell us about our giant ice wall in the north of Westeros. The wall stretches for 300 miles and is about 700 feet tall. It's made of solid ice with some stone and earth, and you can see it for miles around. It appears gray or blue depending on weather and time of day. It's fairly wide. At the top you could ride something like 12 knights across, and it's even wider than thicker than that at the base. According to myth, there are spells that are built in as a part of it, which helps to strengthen the structure, and it also keeps out magical creatures such as the White Walkers from passing through. The wall does not have standard gates. They're just holes, but then they're reinforced with iron bars and massive chains, and you can't get in without someone, using a pulley system to unlock it. The Night Watch can seal the gates with ice and stone if they need to, or during times when they're not using that particular gate, or if they're under attack. The Night's Watch built 19 castles, and they've never actually manned all of them at the same time. I think 17 is the most that they've ever had people in all together. Over the last 300 years, as the manpower of the Watch has dropped, most of these castles have been abandoned. Right now, they only use 3 of them, and sometimes they just send forces to different abandoned castles for periods of time. The ones that they use are Castle Black, which is the largest maintained castle. That's located at the end of the King's Road and held by nearly 600 brothers. They also have people at the Shadow Tower, which is the westernmost end, and maybe like 200 people might be there. And then we have Eastwatch by the Sea, the port of the Night's Watch, with the smallest garrison located at the eastern end of the wall. The Night's Watch cuts down trees that are close to the wall, so they leave like a half-mile buffer zone. Over time, they have crept back closer to the abandoned castles because they don't have the manpower to go out and keep that part clear. It's a lot easier to protect the wall than it is to attack it, so that means a small group can hold off a much larger force. Defenders are generally beyond the range of bows or catapults, and in turn rely on archery, catapult, and dropped objects to shower down pain on anyone who tries to approach. To attack, there are only 2 choices: a head-on attack of the gates, which is pretty difficult, or sending a party over the wall to attack the gate from behind. We've seen this idea in action when Jon was pretending to defect. He went over the wall with a team of wildlings, but then came to Castle Black to warn them of the impending attack. The wall was built to defend the realms of the first men. The men of the Night's Watch have reportedly defended the wall against others and other monsters for 8,000 years since the end of the Long Night. According to legend, the wall was built by Brandon the Builder with the assistance of the Children of the Forest and Giant, and it is protected with ancient spells and sorcery. Also, according to legend, the wall is vulnerable to the Horn of Joramun. Notice that the 2 most important things we think we know about the wall come from legend. Bran the Builder is who we think of as the wall's creator, but think about how long 8,000 years actually is. The Great Pyramid in Egypt was built around 4,500 years ago, so 8,000 years is a crazy long amount of time. The idea about the children's involvement in the Horn of Joramun is also noted as according to legend, and the facts that spells are woven into it is attributed to myth. This doesn't mean those things aren't true, but it does indicate that the story may have changed depending on who passed the story along. Part of the language here would be due to the maesters who like to paint a picture where magic doesn't exist. beast. We know this is false because we've seen clear-cut examples of magic, which by the way appear to be increasing at this point in history. So here's the thing, there was a long night where winter lasted a generation as far as we can tell. The story is told throughout the world, and even though the details are different, it's a strong indication that something like that happened. Westerosi legend says that when this was going on, the others or the White Walkers advanced south to wreak havoc on mankind. The show's version of the story tells us that the children created the White Walkers as a weapon against men who they were losing a war with. I'm not of the opinion that this will be different in the books because it pretty much makes sense. Like most things, how we get to the reveal and what we learn about their intentions will be more complicated, but overall this is probably something George R.R. Martin told D&D. Once things got out of control with the White Walkers and everything seemed lost, the last hero is said to have sought out the children for help. From there, the Night's Watch was formed and the combined forces were able to win what's known as the Battle of the Dawn. The others apparently retreated to the Land of Always Winter, and in the end no one knows the fate of the last hero. Of course, as our story is concerned, we are more familiar with Azor Ahai, which is a strikingly similar story from the east, and there are many others such as the Lion of Night from even further east. From these stories, prophecies have been born where there will be another long night that could once again bring about the end of men. Prophecy aside, the one thing that we know came out of this period of time is the Wall, a giant barrier meant to protect the first men and all the other men who came after them from the White Walkers and their armies of the dead. An engineering feat that makes it one of the wonders of this world and one that has been a constant in an ever-changing realm. The Night's Watch has continually manned the Wall as a neutral force for 8 millennia, during which time there hasn't been much White Walker activity. In fact, the only other event that involved the Wall and the others was the corruption of the 13th Lord Commander, which is a whole other story. And remember that Jon Snow was the 998th Lord Commander, so that was a long time ago. Leading up to the events of the A Song of Ice and Fire series, the Black Brothers are mostly concerned with keeping wildlings out. So much so that even when people hear of the encounter with the White Walkers in the very beginning of the series, they don't think that much of it. That is where we are now. Our story began with signs that the White Walkers were moving south. Over time, the wildlings realized they had to do something, which led to their migration. This brought them into conflict with the Night's Watch, who were blocking their way south with said wall. Jon was the only one who could wrap his head around the idea that leaving them on the other side was a recipe for making lots of whites, and this has helped along since he was at Hardhome and when it happens in the show. As we know, the Crows, who had been fighting the Free Folk for generations, couldn't get on board with Jon's plan and chose mutiny over working together. Now we have the end of the show coming up, and it seems like there's just no way the Wall isn't going to come down before the story is complete. I'm in the camp that thinks Sam has the Horn of Winter in Old Town, so not sure if that will play a role or not. I could do a video about the Horn if you want, but the show seems to be pointing us in the direction of Bran playing a role in it coming down. Since the Night King's mark broke the magic that was keeping the White Walkers out of the cave, and since Benjen mentioned that he couldn't pass the Wall while at the same time sending Bran in there, many fans think that the mark will have the same effect if Bran passes through the Wall. There's so many other things to think about, I should probably just end the video here. Let's look at what the Wall means and what it might mean if it comes down. Until now, with only one exception that happened thousands of years ago, the Wall's existence has deterred the others from moving south. Of course, it's complicated, but we know that there were hard and long winters over this time, so on some level it seems like they chose to stay away. There may have been a pact which was broken, or they may be reacting to some other change, like the rise of magic that we see going on. The truth is, we don't know all the details because things like these get lost over time. Back in 2000, when asked about the construction of the Wall, George R.R. Martin said this. The interviewer said, "Would you mind giving a brief description on how the Wall was constructed?" Martin said, "Much of these details are lost in the midst of time and legend. No one can even say for certain if Brandon the Builder ever lived. He is as remote from the time of the novels as Noah and Gilgamesh are from our own time. But one thing I will say, for what it's worth, more than ice went into raising the Wall. Remember, these are fantasy novels. This brings us full circle with Hadrian's Wall. Nowadays, people send their prisoners to the Wall to get rid of them. The Brothers of the Night Watch spend most of their time freezing to defend this huge structure from small bands of wildling raiders. That's not to say that there weren't some important events that have gone down at the Wall, but for the amount of time it's been there, things have been pretty quiet. Couple that with the idea that so much time has passed that people who aren't from the north they're just barely aware of the significance that the Wall once held. So let me know what you guys think, and let me know in the comments if there are any other videos about the Wall you want to see. Was Bran the Builder a real person, and did he build the Wall with the help of the children and giants like the legend says? Was there a pact involved, or do you think the others just took off and haven't haven't been back yet. If there was a pact, how did it get broken? Is the birth of Dany's dragons and other magical occurrences related to White Walkers coming south? And is the wall definitely without a doubt coming down, and if so, how? You have to admit, building a giant ice wall to keep ice creatures who are really good at working with ice out is a little bit hard to figure. Don't forget that I've got a giveaway going on, and all you have to do is be a subscriber and leave a comment. When I hit 18,000 subscribers, I will pick one comment and send that subscriber a copy of A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. So please like the video if you liked it and subscribe for your chance to win. Thanks for watching. I will talk to you soon.